All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me this evening. It's great to have you here with me to talk about something that I'm very, very passionate about. As Alison Nicole said, I'm Rod. I have a background in education. I have been a kindy teacher for about 10 years. I was principal of a school. I also have a background in psychology. And I currently run ThinkersThis, which is a early years school in Sydney. So it's a great place for me to continue practicing what I'm very, very passionate about. And starting school is such an important time for our young folk, and I'm just so pleased that you're here to actually, to share some ideas and some thoughts around how to get the most out of the next few months before school starts, and hopefully answers a whole bunch of your questions around what is important and what you should be looking out for, what you should be considering in order to have a really great, successful start to school for your young person. So let's just jump straight in, and I will click onto there we go. So there's a couple of ways we're going to look at this. One is for the children specifically, and then also for you as parents to make sure that that is has equal importance in your mind. So let's just get right to it for our young folk. Some of the things that we really want the children to be able to do is to be able to have lots and lots of practice around putting on their shoes. Now, depending on what school you go to, some schools are, they can be shoelaces or they can be Velcro, but there's something special about being able to put your shoes on yourself and do those shoelaces and all those sorts of things. So between now and the end of January, just really take some time to stop and to show your children how to do their shoes, put their shoes on, particularly their laces. Now, if they're already doing that, then you can already got a big tick. So that's fantastic. Clothes is a big thing, making sure that they can do it themselves. One of the biggest things about the developing mind of a 3 to 5 year old is really about getting the two sides of the brains together, working harmoniously. Doing buttons, doing zippers, those sorts of things, all brings those two sides of the brains together. And sometimes with our little fingers, it takes time to get that right. So it's never a good idea to do it in a rushed way. Think about when you're trying to, do something for the first time, or you're trying to feel like you've got a bit of mastery around something. It's just, you just don't need that added pressure. So really just give them that time to get that right if they haven't already got that well and truly underway. We're going to talk a little bit more about how to get the dexterity of the fingertips going and being more efficient bit later in the presentation. Recesses and lunches are a really big part of the day. One of the things that you'll find is that your little one will be wanting to feel super, that really feel like they're fitting in beautifully, and you can imagine that they're all sitting around with their friends and they're opening their lunch boxes and there's a whole bunch of food in there. If your children are going to an early years service where food is provided, then sometimes they don't have a lot of that current and pressing knowledge just around how to open things and what to use. And so it's really important that you just take the time to show them what is recess and what is lunch. And some schools, they encourage you to have what they call a nude lunchbox, which means that it comes in all food comes in Tupperware containers, so that then there is no wrapping and things like that. And you can actually say, this blue lidded box is for morning tea, the red one is for lunch, and so don't get them mixed up. Those clear things are really important. One of the things that I used to encourage my kindy parents to do was to make sure that you go on lots of picnics. And at the moment, it just might be a picnic in the backyard or in the lounge room even. But just sit down and you all have a lunchbox and you open it. What would recess or what would morning tea look like? What would a fruit snack look like? And, you know, it sounds very basic, but what is the key principle that lies behind that is that independence and that confidence about myself, about what's going on. I'm looking confident and capable amongst my friends. I can even help my friends make some decisions about the types of foods that's in their lunch boxes if they're not sure. And that again helps me to sort of really feel like I'm in charge of my environment and what's going on. So loads and loads and loads of practice. And if you asked me every week to try and do something specific around getting these right, until you have a sense that there's a real level of mastery. And mastery means that you're just doing it without thinking, and you know when that happens for your child. And I think that's a really important thing for them to be able to do. I taught kindy personally for about 10 years, and it was always such a delight to see how chuffed and how proud they were to be sitting around together, just pulling something out and knowing exactly what it is, rather than sort of having to sheepishly come and ask, can you open it? What should I eat? And those sorts of things. The other thing in relation to that, though, it's very important to know what lunch is, and that we don't eat lunch at morning tea. Now, obviously, you'll have the teacher there to help, but just knowing the difference is really critical, because if you eat all your lunch at morning tea, you can get quite hungry, and then there's all sorts of complications around that. So those sorts of things, shoes, clothes, just those routines, just let those routines start to bubble up for them. No pressure, lots of questions, lots of curious questions. Don't direct them. Ask a clarifying question. If they're trying to do their shoelaces and they seem to be getting it right, don't correct them. Give them the opportunity to self-correct themselves. Is that how we do it? Is that how we started? Is that how we showed you? Just those gentle type of questions gives them a chance to reflect, consider, self-correct. The self-correction part is the most important part there. And then if they still look at you and go, no, I can't get it, you can say, would you like some help? Jump in. And so that is a really important aspect of getting that confidence and that independence just starting to flourish in your child's life. The next thing that we've got there is homework and home life. Balance is absolutely essential. Now, a lot of schools will tell you that homework is, you have to do it, and it is absolutely required. Well, that debate is still raging, and there is a lot of questions about that from a psychological perspective, and from a teacher perspective. The most important thing is that your home life is a place where it is a safe, loving, caring, full of vibrant environment. That's number one. Do not think that the homework should be overtaking that. It absolutely doesn't. Homework is essentially, if you look at the definition, is a way in which to review and to perhaps clarify some work that's been done at home, at school rather, during the day, and it's a way to back it up and to explore it. In kindy, really the most important homework is read, and just to celebrate what they've done during the course of the day. In the Australian curriculum, there is a certain amount of minutes, right down to the minute, of how long a child should be spending exploring literacy concepts. And so you need to remember that they will come home exhausted, and to have a whole bunch come on is probably doing yourself a bit of a disservice, when realistically one of the best things that you can do is let them come home, remind them how important they are to you, how special they are to you, how much you love and care for them, and how important they are to your family, and just let that message sink in, and then start to look at homework once it starts coming in. But if it's just not going, again, that balance of that safe haven should never be disrupted by this notion of homework. my advice to you at that point is do the reading, because there'll always be a little bit of literacy, hopefully a lot. Do the reading and just love literacy with your children, and let that become the flavour of the month, of the year. That's number one, most important. And then I'd be jumping in with the teacher, talking to them and saying, okay, we aren't getting stuff done that we'd like to get done. What are your hot tips? How can you help me with that? That's really important. But that balance is so important. I just can't emphasize that enough. There is no point in losing relationship with your child over homework. No principal, no teacher, and no psychologist will ever say that that's the right thing to do. Homework is not there to destroy home life. So please make sure that, and particularly in kindy, it just isn't. But there's sometimes this sense, oh, we've got to do this, we've got to do this. Just pause, reflect, think, what's more important, that my child knows that I love them and they're the most important thing, or that we have a fight? I'm just not sure. Let's go and read a book together and let's just love some literacy. The next thing there is about curiosity. I know you've probably all been experiencing the why question. Why, Mum? Why, Dad? Why? What's going on? And, you know, when developmentally they're in a stage where they're exploring life for the first time. It's pretty exciting. It's very interesting. They don't have a lot of answers, which is why you get a lot of the whys. And it's wonderful that they're asking. Curiosity is one of the most treasured gifts that you can give yourself as a parent, I believe, to be able to know that your child is interested in what's happening around them. Yes, I totally understand that sometimes it's a little bit, oh, you need to stop asking me that question, and I understand that. But one of the gifts that you need to remind yourself is just how important this level of curiosity is. It really is incredibly important. So keep celebrating, because there will come a time when they will seem to not be curious much anymore, or they'll be curious around things that you're like, oh, really? I just don't want you to even be worrying or being bothered with that. So, you know, just lap it up, encourage them, show them and model how important that is. The next one there is read like never before. Honestly and truly, I cannot recommend that highly enough. If you can read 3 or 4 books a night, I know that might sound a lot, paraphrase, those sorts of things if you need to get through a long book fast, but just use the pictures, tell the story using the pictures, don't worry about necessarily all the words, but it's about showing your child just how important literacy and literature is. It is absolutely literature driven society, and the one thing that we want in our little people is that they love books, they love stories, they love the mystery, the plot, the adventure that's being created there. So just and the more you model it, the more they go, well, if Mum and Dad love it, then I'm going to love it too. It just can't encourage you to do that. And if you're already spending a lot of time reading stories with your children, then 2 thumbs up to you. It's just going to make every bit of difference to your child's education. It absolutely will. There is an amazing amount of studies done in the Australian environment around how important early literacy is to academic achievement in school. And early literacy is really just that love of stories, and what does it look like, and having and snuggling in with Dad and Mum and you know, Nana and Grandpa and, you know, whoever else is super important in your child's life. So really jump into literacy. And in all honesty, I just cannot stress that enough. Do not worry about whether they can read independently themselves, although I have a sneaking suspicion that if you've been reading a lot with your child, that they'll have a favourite story and they'll be able to tell you a story. That is actually what is defined as being an emergent reader. When you and I pick up a book, we don't sound out words. We actually have a sight vocab. We have use our memories, long and short-term memories, to know exactly the way words look and the shape of them, and that's actually called emergent reading. So it's wonderful to be able to say, if your child's able to recite their favourite story to you, they are actually pre-reading, which is it's a pretty cool thing that they're able to do that. So get get loving that, get excited. And if they literally have memorized it word for word, then jump your finger across each of the words on the page as they recite it from memory, and just get so excited with them and make them feel like $1 million from that experience, because it's so important. The next one there is let them be the teacher and find out what they're expecting. You know, we all talk about it. They're listening to everything that you're saying, and they're listening to their friends, and they're listening to what's going on. So can I really just ask them what they think school's going to be like? If they've got an older brother or sister, they'll be listening and watching and thinking about that. If they're the eldest in your family, they'll be listening and watching what you say, what their friends say, what what their grandparents or close friends are saying about school, and they will be forming opinions. And so it's really important that you are able to demystify any of it, but also at the same time give your give some clarity. A really interesting story that I experienced in my preschool a couple of years ago was we had this little girl, and in preschool, super confident, absolutely smashing every ball out of the park, and we were just so proud and so chuffed because she joined us. She was very shy, wasn't very, very not confident in anything, but by the time she'd been with us for a couple of years, she was absolutely just going for gold. And of course, then we said to her, it's time, well, Mum said to her, it's time to go to kindy. And she just absolutely lost it. And she didn't really, and her parents were going, but the school's going to be fun. They went and visited the school together. They did all the tours. They met the teacher, but she was absolutely beside herself. Now, it took about 3 or 4 months for finally one day the answer came. So they were a blended family, and what the older brothers were doing was they would come and visit Mum and Dad and herself and a younger sister, and they would then they would go away for 2 weeks. And her mum and dad said, "Oh, the boys are going to school." And then 2 weeks later, they would return. So this little girl, from her 4-year-old perspective, had come to realise, or had come to the conclusion that to go to school meant I was going away for 2 weeks, and I wouldn't see Mum and Dad for 2 weeks. And of course, through this gentle conversation and let's just sit and explore it together, we finally hit upon what the problem was. We sorted that out. Not a single tear was shed again, because it was just the issue was resolved. And of course, that wasn't the case. It was the case that the older boys were going and hanging out with their mum for 2 weeks. So at their other house. So it's really interesting what they listen, what they think about, and so you need to ask and get some good intel. But you only do that by really just sitting and being curious with them and asking them about what they're thinking and how they're feeling about what school might be like. And maybe you could even do a bit of role playing. Maybe you can ask them to be the teacher, and you guys could be the students and see what comes out of that. It's always a fun game to play, and you certainly hear what the preschool teacher says, and all those sorts of things, and you get to have a bit of a giggle around what their young perspectives are around some of these essential things. I think there's some readiness clues that we'll look into with a bit more detail in a few minutes, but there's interdependence is one. Is your child able to connect, and are they able to work independently? Connect with their peers and with adults. It's a really important thing to do. They'll have their main teacher, plus they'll also have a number of other teachers. It could be a relief teacher, could be a specialist teacher such as a music teacher, an art teacher, or a sports teacher. And so this interdependence is really important. Can I work by myself, and am I able to connect with the adults? Can I ask help for when I need it? Self-regulation is so important. Self-regulation is one of the things that sets us up for success in so many areas of our life. Your ability to just sit and listen to this webinar, for instance, is all about your capacity to self-regulate. It's all comes here in the prefrontal cortex of our brain, where we manage our impulses and also our emotional reactions to things, our highs and lows, and how do we come back to an equilibrium. So self-regulation is really important. How do we develop self-regulation? It's through giving your children time and space to become an effective problem solver, look for opportunities so that they have lots of options to make choices when they get a bit stuck, and also to be able to use their language skills, both listening and speaking, to be able to solve problems. Another thing there is persistence, not to give up. If your child is able to do Lego, for instance, build a Lego tower, or do a drawing from scratch and then turn it into a painting, those sorts of things. I think that's really about persistence. I'm often asked about whether being able to sit in front of a piece of technology is a good example of persistence or self-regulation. Perhaps in some areas, yes. So what happens when you say technology time is over? There's an interesting question for you about self-regulation. How are they able to take and manage those feelings? Because we all know how much they love a bit of technology. I think persistence around a game is what happens, or technology, when it's not going the way that we want it to go. Can we, are there other options for us to be able to keep going and to not give up? And there's a little bit of a crossover between self-regulation and persistence there, but it's important that they're able to do that. And then how is your child being capable? Are they doing things on their own, or are they saying things like, I can't, I'm never going to do that? Those sorts of things where they have minimised themselves. Or they have been in an environment where things have been done for them. One of the things that we all know is at school, they'll either become one of 20 or one of 30, depending on what school that you end up choosing to send your child to. So they need to be able to do things independently, and they need to be capable at that. It just absolutely is. It's just the way that our education system works. And so while it's often easier to do things for them to move it along, I totally understand that, and I know what that's all about. But at the same time, you've also got to be quite aware of the importance of making sure that they are doing these things quite capably and competently themselves. All right, let's move on to our next screen here. How do we get out of sticky situations? This is all about, someone takes something that I feel like, is mine or I'm using. Is your child able to do that? It's a very good indicator around social maturity and their ability to interact and have reciprocal play. That's a really interesting thing. That's a good signal to show you that they're developing it at a good age and stage for heading to school. One of the great things to do at home is to play out scenarios with them. So you might be playing a game, and you might be the person that does the taking, or does the annoying action, and you want to be able to see that your child is able to get out of that sticky situation. Because let's face it, out in the world, there's always going to be someone that you don't agree with, or you don't necessarily understand the choices that they make or the words that they say. And you want to be able to have the confidence and the ability to move out of that sticky situation. And the way in which we develop that confidence and that ability is through scenarios and conversation and observation when there isn't any pressure happening for ourselves. In other words, we're not right in the middle of it. So I think having those conversations and those scenarios is a really easy, simple way to really make sure that your child has got that already under their belt, so to speak. If they've got older siblings, then they tend to probably will have already had a lot of experience around that, or even younger ones for that matter. But it's still a really important thing to have when they know that they are one of, 20 children in the class. So it's really important. Holding a pencil comfortably. Now, that's the most important thing. Now, when it comes to holding a pencil, what they talk about is a tripod grip. Well, let me see if I can show you. I'm left-handed, so it's a bit hard. It's a bit like this. Now, the reason why they say that this is the best type of grip is because it's the most flexible for your hand. And when you are writing, it means that you can do it for a sustained period of time. When it's like this or, any other grip, we tend to, we put a whole lot of extra stress and strain on those muscles, and the fatigue can come up quite quickly, as a result. So it's holding it comfortably. One of the things that I always encourage families is once they've shown their children how to do and how to hold a pencil, get the children to self-correct. So if they pick up their pencil and they're holding it like this, then one of the things that you might say, is that how we hold a pencil? Or is that a great way to hold a pencil? And get them to look, and if they need a bit of help to self-correct, then good idea. So yes, it is quite important that they have a comfortable grip. If it's not exactly this, it may not be the end of the world. But the idea is with this tripod grip, is because it's the three fingers, it really is about that flexibility, and that over a period of time, sustained writing, that it's you're not overworking those muscles. And the muscles in our fingertips, they are quite, while that we use our hands all the time and our fingers all the time, they're not really mega strong muscles. So to be squeezing the life out of a pencil for 20 minutes or 10 minutes even means your hand's going to be exhausted. So having that that pencil grip is important, but also making sure that it's done in a comfortable way, and that they can self-correct again, because remember, they're going to be one of many, not just, it's not a one-on-one experience. So getting them to have that is really good. There's lots of different opinions around pencil grips, but been a teacher for 30 years, and that really fundamentally is really still the best solution. I would absolutely, moving on there, is to know that their ears and their eyes and their language is all okay. Can they see colours? Hopefully you've done all those tests that make sure their ears are clear, make sure they can hear. It's all about making sure that they can understand how to make the sounds of words, and then to build their phonemes and the phonemic awareness for building their literacy skills. That happens for them, and they work in that area at school every single day. So you really want to make sure that that's right. And obviously their language is really important. They should be absolutely clearly understood by the time they go to school by somebody who's never met them before. So meet for the first time. Doesn't matter so much how much they say, because if you're shy or a little bit retiring and you're not a big chatterbox, that doesn't matter as much. What matters is that when they do speak, it's clear, and that they're effective communicators. And if you're not sure, then there's a reason. You've got mums and dads out there, you've got this intuition, this DNA that just absolutely is there for a reason. So if you've got a question, then go and check it out. There are lots of places around where you can go and you can meet with an OT, or you go to the eye doctor and go to the GP and have their hearing checked. And if it comes back all good, then it's just a double tick for you to make sure that that's right. But you want to be able to make sure that that's all good. And the last point there is sharing ideas, and the fact that they're able to talk to their friends, and then listen to what their friends have to say, and then respond to their friends. I think that's a really important part of developing strong relationships, rather than just talking at each other, developmentally, they absolutely are at a point by the time you go to school to be able to do that effectively. So if they're not, then there's probably some questions that you want to ask. Either, what's happening at home? Is there lots of, if they're older siblings, often people will be talking for them, and therefore they haven't needed to do too much of that. If their English is a second language, then it's one of those things where you might want to just make sure that you teach them how to to speak in full sentences. They don't have to be long, they just need to be short and clear. But then once they've said their piece, then they listen carefully, because it's a different set of skills. Listen carefully to what's being said to them. Simple things like, I want you to go upstairs, put your jammies on, clean your teeth, go to bed. There's 3 steps there. Can they do that? Repeat to me what it is that you need to do. Oh, I need to go upstairs. I need to clean my teeth, put my jammies on. And it's that reciprocal communication that's really important there. And it's a great signal for you that your little one is ready to go in the classroom. So really now I want to move on to parents, and you guys are just as important in this whole process as your little one. I think the first one there is, have you matched your expectations of what school is and how it should be with the school that you've chosen? It's such an important thing. And my strategy to you there is go and interview the principal. Go and talk to them, go and find out why their school's so good. And it doesn't matter whether it's public or private education, that's not the issue. The issue is every principal, and I used to be one, so I knows or should know, if they're a good one, why their school matters and what is important and how they can be a really important part in shaping your child's future. So go and talk to them. Tell them about your hopes and dreams and what your expectation is about the school. Don't keep it hidden. Okay, no teacher is ever going to be a mind reader. And so it's really important that you go and you ask them. And if you're passionate about sport, go and talk to them about that if you don't already know. One of the things that I really, really want to encourage you is to go to the people who know, not to the people who think they know. All right, don't go to your friends and talk to them first. Sometimes their information may be 100% bang on accurate, but as a teacher, as a principal, often that information, that grapevine information, isn't 100% clear. Some schools have class parents, and that relationship is designed to make sure that the school has a very clear communication avenue with that class parent, and then they're able to communicate a bunch of very important messages to you. So, but please, just go and talk to the principal. Get your expectations right. And not if the principal comes away, if you come away from that interview and you go, you know what, this school just is not going to meet our child's needs, then change schools. It's not too late. Absolutely. Yes, there are complications in doing that if you're going through the public system, but you need to really make sure that it's right, particularly if your child's got some special needs that you're aware of. The next thing there is what strategies have you put in place to prepare for the transition for your family? Like I said, the children are always listening. How do you talk about school? How do you talk about school with your partner? Do you talk about it in a positive way? Do you talk about it like, can't wait for them to go back to school? What message is that sending? We all do that. When you're you're at school yourself, or you're in a family situation and you know that someone's talking about you, but you can't quite hear it and you're not really 100% sure, but well, children are exactly the same, and they know when something that's relating to them is being spoken to about in a way that doesn't either make sense to them or is a bit concerning, and they watch you like a hawk in that respect. And that means that goes down to the last 2 points on this slide, where it really is so important that you demonstrate that you trust the teacher. So at kindy orientation, in order to go out there with your child, introduce yourself to the teacher, introduce your child. Maybe they might like to do it themselves if they're, if you've been practicing that at home, which I think is, a great thing. Laugh with the teacher and show clearly in an explicit way that you feel comfortable and you trust the teacher. Your child will be watching you like a hawk to see whether they think they can trust the teacher because of how you have responded and you act around that teacher. So it's in the first couple of weeks of school, it's really important. Even at the kindy orientation, you know, that when you go up to them and you say hi, and your child is standing there watching you, their eyes are watching the teacher, they're watching you. Are they connecting? What's your body language saying? They absolutely, they might not be able to tell you exactly and explicitly using adult language and concepts what your body language is saying, but they will know whether that person is a trustworthy person, because that's the way in which we our DNA is formed. And also there is some amazing research around how we come up to the age of 5, how our young people tune into our social and social gesturing and reciprocity through the course of the co-construction of knowledge, which is that idea of modelling. You know, if you're nervous around, as an adult, if you're nervous around something, or you have a nervous, there's a nervous experience that, an experience makes you nervous, then that will be often reflected and replicated in your child, because that's how they're learning about the world. They're learning about it from you, and so it's really important that you do that. So I think make sure you have a strategy. We've got a strategy for the children. We want to make sure that you guys have a strategy for yourself, so that you are feeling calm and excited and passionate about going to school, not just because they're not going to be, you're going to have a bit of a breather, but because you've got a great place, great friends, and often having older siblings is a great start to that. But they're having to experience it themselves, remember. It's all very well and good to see older brothers and sisters doing it, but now it's my turn. And how am I going to experience my go at starting school? So that's really important. One of the big things that parents often talk to me about is, they get home from preschool and or childcare, and say, how was your day? Did you do anything? No. Play with anybody? Nope. Did you just sit around? Nope. They don't give you anything. It's a very interesting challenge for parents to be able to get information out of their children. So one of the things that I have found to be very successful, not only for me personally, but also for many of the families that I've worked alongside of, is instead of asking a question, an interrogatory question, it's a why question. Tell me about lunchtime and who did you sit next to when you ate your lunch? Things like that. And it's a much more open-ended question, and it gives your children a chance to really just tell you whatever matters. So it's a great way to shift the questions from, did you have a great day? Yep. Did you do anything? No. Remember when you come home from work, and someone turns, how was your day? Fine. Anything happen? No, but you're frantic all day. So it's just a human response. But if you ask me these kind of quite specific questions, open-ended questions around a specific experience, you'll often get a much better response. Going to the school as much as you can is before they start, is making it super familiar. Familiarity is awesome. And it also really helps with them to know that, again, it's going to be a safe place. The next thing there is about moving through routines and rituals as a family. Again, if you've got siblings, then this will be something that they will be familiar with. But again, they're now part of the school routine, so it's a different experience. If this is your first child going to school, then routines or rituals are so important. Have breakfast together. You might go, oh my gosh, how is that going to work with us having to get out and go to work? Then just honestly and truly, having that moment where you just are having your coffee and you're sitting beside your child and you talk to them, you look them in the eye and you tell them how precious and how important they are, goes so far. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a couple of minutes. But truly, if you want their anxiety to be lessened, and that calm to rise and that self-regulation to be right there at their fingertips, this creating of a safe haven and a secure base is just so important. And those rituals, which actually provide them this little extra sense of, who I am, is just, and that I'm the apple of my mum or my dad's eye, or whoever it is that's starting them off for the day, then it's really important. The next one there is around always seeking evidence before you're being led by your feelings. Now, sometimes for instance, your child will say, "Did you play with anyone today?" "No." "Anyone at all?" "No." "Oh my gosh, my child doesn't have any friends." "Do you know any of your friends' names?" "No." So the best thing to do is just to pop into the teacher and to say, "Right, my child has no friends. Can you tell me a little bit about this? You're here with them every day. Can you help me understand that?" They might have had a bit of an altercation, and your child comes home saying, "So-and-so hates me," or "This is just, this terrible thing happened." And you validate their experience. That's really important. Tell them how critical and important it is to that they're special, and that you believe them, and that you'll get to the bottom of it. But let me tell you, the gifts that I can give you is to go to the teacher first and say, "Right, so my child has said this. Can you put some perspective on it? Can you put some adult perspective on it?" It's really important that you do that, and truly it will be a gift that just keeps on giving for you, because you'll be able to help your child not only respect their feelings and their thoughts and their expectations, but you'll be able to do it in a way that helps to adjust and to show them that you trust the teacher, trust the school, and that you can be trusted to follow up and follow through. What I found as school principal, that 9 times out of 10, that child's perspective was quite narrow. There was quite a serious experience for them, but they weren't aware of what was happening here and what was happening here and what was happening in the wider context. So for you to be able to touch base, collect some evidence from the school is an incredibly important gift from you. And that leads on to that last point there, where the teacher really is the expert of what happens during the day. So go and use that expertise. Don't go in there and I just encourage you not to go in there and say, "What happened? What happened?" Go in there and say, "Okay, here is the scenario that I've got. This is the story I've got. I'm a bit worried, or I'm very worried. I don't really know what to make of it. Can you just help me to give me some more clarity around the situation?" Now, you still might want to then take it to the principal, and because it's absolutely outrageous, but you will have the cold hard data and the evidence to support your claim for the desire to have something changed, versus it based on your feelings, and then afterwards you're kind of having to go, "Oh gosh, I may have overreacted because I was going on a 5-year-old's perspective rather than getting the full picture and the understanding of the context of what happened at school." And again, from my experience, for years after years, this is one of those things that it just saves a whole lot of problems for you as parents, because you've got enough on your plate. But also it shows the children how to deal with tricky situations, shows them how to be calm, how to ask questions, how to be mindful in their approach. And again, that you can be trusted and the school can be trusted. And that's a really important way of moving forward. I think I've touched on those ones. This is, I think, really important just at the moment with COVID. And I know that some of you have asked these questions around this sense of well-being. I guess there's 4 things that I really want to just say very briefly about that, because I'm aware of the time. But first thing is, your children need to know that you are their safe haven, and that you are their secure base. They look to you for that. They look to you for what we call a co-construction of knowledge. In other words, as you are teaching them through your coming and going, your conversations on the phones, your conversations with each other and other important people in your life, that's how they're learning to communicate, to think, to feel. So they are co-constructing along with you. So it's really important that this safe haven is there. And, so there's a number of levels. There's the explicit level, which is you just looking them in the eye, telling them how much you love them, how much you care for them, how important that they are, squeezing them, hugging them, then giving them another hug, snuggling, reading books, those sorts of things. Now, some of this stuff you're like, yeah, okay, we do all this, is fantastic, then a double, triple thumbs up to you, because that's just so incredibly important to the developmental side of things at this age group. Then lots of that modelled or guided self-regulation. Show the children how you get unstuck. Often what happens in adulthood, we discover a problem, we deal with the problem solving in our heads. So the children have seen this, but they don't see this, and then they get to the end. And then we go, oh, now we're going to do this. But there's no joining them in here. Now, obviously you don't want to join them in on every single one, because that might be too much. Just think about how you might be able to stop, and it might be a Saturday afternoon where you're faced with an issue. Turn to them. What do you reckon we should do? How could we solve this problem? Time when you're not rushed, you've got time for a conversation. Might be, during bath time, where you're sitting there chatting with them. Use that time again to model and to guide them through this process. It's really important. And then to help them to understand feelings. It's so important that we remind them that being angry is okay, but what do we do with that anger? We've got to be able to show them the steps and the processes to become unangry, to calm down, to walk down those steps, and to go back to being that level of normal. And normal being, my emotionality is calm and I'm feeling okay. So it's really one of those things where you want to give them a chance to see how it's done. And I think particularly during this time when we are at home a whole bunch more, now is an absolutely ideal time to show your children how to cope, how to manage, how to, when they're super happy, how do we calm down? When we're super excited, who do we share that excitement with? And then how do we come back to being regulated? I'm really sad. That's okay, no worries. How do we come back to being regulated? Who are my support people? What language do I use? What are the things that I can go and do to help you to do that? Developmentally, again, from a cognition perspective, your child from 3 to 5 is absolutely capable, more than capable, to solve those and to solve those problems, understand the processes, and start to apply it for themselves. But it does take some time. You need to repeat, which I'm sure you would all understand and know already. I feel like I've touched on pretty much everything that is that's there. I guess the only thing that I would like to just talk about is, in relation to, there was a number of questions about special needs and what happens in relation to a special needs child. Well, I think the first thing to remember around special needs, and it could be from English as a second language to a developmental delay to being on autism spectrum or any of those sorts of things. The key to it is early is always better. If you have a question in your spirit or in your heart about your child's development, go and talk to people who know. Go to the doctor and ask them. Don't go to your friends, because unless they're the doctor, that's a different story. But talk to people who know. Go and seek out a speech therapist or those sorts of things. Just get that, get it right, because early gives you a much better, speed of access to bring the best possible outcome. Leaving it late is just a nightmare for you, for your child, most importantly, and also definitely for how you want to and will be interacting with schools and also professionals that support learning. The other thing that is so important is transparency. Do not hide things from the school. And I have to be a little bit brave here and just say, do not be embarrassed about anything that your child has got. And just don't worry about what anybody says. If your child's got a need, then love them and walk with them through that. And I just cannot tell you how important it is. If there's a health condition, then just be honest and open, and just don't hide anything, because it is just the more transparency, the more accessibility that the support network, that either the school or those people around you, the professionals around you, can provide you with exactly what you need. And I guess the last thing is always stay connected to the school. Don't stop and start. You know, it's absolutely fine to be that parent that goes in every second week and talks to the teacher. But don't do it incidentally and just, drop off or pick up. Oh, I just want to catch you. It's really unhelpful. And you know what it's like when you're on the phone, or you're trying to get dinner ready, and they go, Mum, I just want you to help with this. And you're like, not now. Your teacher's exactly the same. So make an appointment with them, and make a standing appointment. For the first 3 months, or for the first term, every second week, sit down with them and just talk to them about how your child's going. But have that appointment. And you know what? If you've got a child's got a great teacher, they will welcome that, and they'll say, this is what we can do together to partner with you to make this work. And that doesn't matter whether your child's got a special need or not. I would do that anyway. And then go there, take a coffee or take some chocolate biscuits, and just say thank you for all that you're doing, and keep the teacher on your side, because you want them to be your best buddy, let's face it, through this. If back to special needs though, I would, before you enrol your child to a school, any school, doesn't matter whether it's private or public, I would absolutely go to the principal and say, right, ask them these two questions. What makes your school the right one for my child and their developmental needs? Just ask them. And if the principal is honest, and that's fingers and toes that they are, they'll say, absolutely bang on, this is what we do, this is how we partner with you, this is the support networks that we have. Or they'll be able to be honest with you and say, we've got this much of the puzzle, but you'll need to get the rest of the puzzle elsewhere. And then the other question might be, how can we partner to meet my child's needs? And I think they're the sorts of things that will truly set you up for success in terms of meeting the types of needs that that your child might face. And you're going to have all sorts of things pop up as your child develops, going through adolescence. That'll be fun. All those sorts of things. So keeping that lovely, clear, open, sustainable communication with the school is super important. And just don't leave things to the last minute. Don't get to the report and go, oh my goodness, what's going on here? Be that parent that's gone in and made time and connected with a teacher, even if it's over Zoom, if you can't get there because meetings and work is such. We've got this facility now. Use it to your advantage to make sure that you can create an opportunity for your child to thrive. And let's face it, that's really what it's all about. So your 5-point plan for success is self-regulation. Look for that. Interdependence. Make sure that they've got lots of that. They're confidently able to connect with adults and peers, that they're very curious, just really encourage that curiosity, and that they are really, that they're able to be able to get in and enjoy life. They're able to do they're doing the hopping, the jumping, the skipping, the catching, the throwing, the dancing, and that's going to mean that when they hit kindy on day one next year, they're going to come back to you. They'll be exhausted and they'll probably fall asleep in the car, but they'll be big smiles. It'll be a good start to the year. All right, well, I will leave that there.